Howdy ho, everyone! Today we are going to take our notes over genetics. So, before we start this, one thing to realize that genetics is DNA. So this is the DNA sequence, like the ATCG. So these are things that are on your DNA. So on your DNA. So biology is actually Latin. And before we get into the notes, it's really important that we understand these Latin root words because it will help us so much later on. So mono. Mono means one. Monopoly. Mono means one. Di. Di means two. Like a dice. Homo. Homo means same. Hetero means different. Co means together. We're all in this together. No, no, no. Alright. Zygo means yolk. My favorite part of the egg. Geno means kind. Hapli means simple or one set. Dipli means double. Ploid means the number of chromosomes in the cell. Pheno is showing. So phenotype is what you see, so showing. Like your long, gorgeous hair, your blue eyes. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about Punnett squares. Okay, not Punnett squares, like a punt, kind of. Okay, so Punnett squares are squares. Squares, they look exactly like this. They're squares within a square. So that's a Punnett square. So a Punnett square shows the possibilities or possible gene. Remember, gene is genetics. Gene combinations. So this is the probability of each outcome. So remember, genes are genetic information that you have received from your mom or your dad. So genetics is showing those combinations when they come together. Many of you or may not have brothers and sisters, but you wonder why y'all do not all look the same. So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay? So it's used to predict, like to guess, and compare the genetic variations. So predict is like taking a guess, and genetic variation is how we all look different. We all look different because of our genetics. So what we are doing is we are predicting the possibilities. I know they use a lot of Punnett squares when it comes to dog breeding. A lot of times when they breed dogs, they're trying to figure out, well, how many of them are going to be blue, how many of them are going to be gray, blonde, and that's when they use Punnett squares. All right, so letters on the outside of the box. Those are your parents. So these are the parents, and we call them alleles. Alleles. So alleles are the letters. So the letters stand for a specific trait. Okay. So traits like long hair, blue eyes, green eyes, tall, short, traits. Traits are also phenotypes too. So they mean the same thing. Phenotypes are what you can see, and we can see your traits. Okay. And then inside of the box is all the possibilities alleles of the offspring, like the children. So inside are all the possibilities of the children. All right, recessive. Recessive is the weaker trait. It is carried in the genes, but it is not shown. Okay, so recessive is carried in the genes, but it's not shown. Example, you might have blue eyes, but your mom and dad might have brown. So blue eyes is recessive. It is a less dominant trait. So recessive is a weaker trait. Dominant, like a dominant alpha wolf, it is the stronger one. So if shown, if carried in the gene, because it's dominant, it's strong. Homozygous, remember homo is the same. Homozygous is if or is when two alleles are identical to one another. Example is dominant big H and dominant big H. Remember, you get one from mom and dad. So big H. Or you could have homozygous recessive, where you have little h, one from mom, and little h, one from dad. So homozygous, dominant, because it's the big letter, big. And then homozygous recessive, because it is the lower letter. Okay, heterozygous is when you have a dominant and a recessive allele. So example would be dominant either from mom or dad, and a recessive that you inherited from mom or dad. Okay, now I'm going to move on. So remember back to this root word, mono means one. So a monohybrid cross is looking for the possibilities for one trait. Okay, like hair color or height, we're looking for one trait. So let me give you an example. I'll use my own actually. So my husband, he has blue eyes, but his mom has brown eyes. So mom has brown eyes, and brown eyes are dominant. So I'm going to use big B for brown and little b for blue. And the one trait we are looking at is eye color. So we are looking for eye color. So big B is brown, little b is blue. So mom is heterozygous. So what that means is she has a dominant and a recessive trait. Dad is also heterozygous. So he has one dominant and one recessive. So we have mom and dad. Now, you might be wondering, why do they have two letters? Well, mom and dad got their genes from their mom and dad. So they have two copies too, just like me and you. And dad has two copies because he got one from his mom and one from his dad. So in order to have a baby, mom and dad have to come together. So here we are. Here is mom. So mom's going to go on this side. Now, we can only give one of each. Like dad can only give one letter and mom can only give one letter. So mom is big B and little b. So those are her two letters. That's all she can give, or at least for eye color. Dad is also big B, little b. So mom has eggs and dad has a sperm. So in order to have a baby, the egg and the sperm have to come together. So mom has a big B and dad's gonna bring a big B. Okay? So that is one baby's possibility. One baby could be big B, big B. Another possibility is dad can bring a big B and mom can bring a little b. So another possibility is big B, little b. Okay, mom can bring a big B and dad a little b. And then mom a little b and dad a little b. So here are the possibilities for this one baby. This one baby could have big B, big B, big B, little b, big B, big, little b, and little b, little b. Okay? So now we are going to look at phenotypes. So phenotypes are what you see. And we have two options. We have brown eyes or green eyes, or blue eyes, sorry, brown or blue. Ugh. Brown or blue. How many of these babies are going to have brown eyes? So remember, brown is dominant. So this baby for sure is going to have brown eyes. This baby will have brown eyes too. Even though it has a little b, remember, big B is dominant. So it's going to rule over this one. Big B, little b. So I have 1, 2, 3. 3 out of 4. So if I have 3/4, that's 75%. So 75% of my children will be brown eyes. Now, we only have 1 out of 4 for blue. Why is this one blue? Remember, recessive traits are weak. So in order to show recessive traits, you have to carry both recessive genes. That is why you do not see them often, like albinoism, dwarfism, because they are recessive traits. So only 1 out of 4 will have that possibility. So that's 25% of your children. Just like if you're breeding dogs, this is why blues are more pricey, because they're less common. Even though we want them, they're very, they carry recessive traits, so it's less common to see them. That's why they're more money. Okay. Now, phenotypes are what we see. Now we're going to look at genotypes. Geno are your genetics. So genotype, genetics, that's your DNA. So I can see brown eyes, I can see blue, but if I look at these big B, little b's, these are just letters to me. So first letter choice is big B, big B. How many of them do I have? I have 1. The second choice is big B, little b, and I have 2 of those. And my third choice is little b, and I only have 1 of those. So this is a genotype 1, 2, 2, 1, and this is a ratio. So a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. All right, one thing I always hear a lot from my kids too is it doesn't matter what letter I put first, the little b or the big B. And the rule of thumb I go by is I always put the dominant in front of the recessive. It shows that it's more dominant and overpowering the recessive trait. So I always go by big letter, little letter. All right. Hey, you're awesome. If you need any help, let me know.